The Hidden Owner, Part 1. The test begins. The evening air was crisp as Maya Carter stepped out her car, pulling her hoodie tighter around her to shield herself from the chill. She glanced up at the glowing sign of Royale, her late father's pride and joy in the restaurant she now owned. The place still looked magnificent from the outside, golden lights flickering against its elegant black exterior, a red carpet leading to the grand entrance. But Maya knew better than to be fooled by appearances. She had heard the whispers, the complaints, loyal customers lamenting how the restaurant had changed after her father's passing, reports of rude staff, favoritism toward wealthy guests, and a decline in the quality of service. Maya wasn't one to sit in an office and listen to reports. She needed to see it with her own eyes. Dressed in worn-out jeans, a faded hoodie, and scuffed sneakers, she looked nothing like the powerful woman who secretly owned this establishment. And that was exactly what she wanted. Taking a deep breath, she stepped inside. The moment she crossed the threshold, a wave of warmth and the scent of fine cuisine enveloped her. The restaurant was bustling with well-dressed patrons, elegant chandeliers casting a golden glow over the marble floors. But beneath the glamour, Maya noticed something unsettling. A group of waiters whispered among themselves, throwing disapproving glances her way. A hostess near the entrance wrinkled her nose as she noticed Maya's attire. Here we go, Maya thought. She approached the hostess stand. The woman behind it, a tall blonde with sharp features, gave her a once-over, her lips curling in disdain. "Can I help you?" the hostess asked, her tone laced with irritation. Maya smiled politely. "I'd like a table, please." The hostess let out a small, mocking laugh. "We're fully booked." Maya glanced around. There were at least 3 empty tables near the window. "Are you sure?" The hostess rolled her eyes. "Even if we weren't full, our menu is expensive. Perhaps you should try somewhere more in your budget." Maya felt anger coil in her chest, but she kept her expression neutral. "I'd still like to be seated." Before the hostess could respond, a waiter, his name tag read Ron, stepped forward, smirking. "What's the issue here, Claire?" "This lady wants a table," Claire said, amusement in her voice. "But I told her we're full." Ron folded his arms, looking Maya up and down. "We don't do charity, miss. You'd be more comfortable at a diner down the street." The nearby staff chuckled, Maya's fists clenched inside her hoodie pockets. Then a voice interrupted. "She has every right to be here." Maya turned and saw a young waiter, early 20s, dark hair, kind eyes. His name tag read Ethan. Claire scoffed. "Stay out of this, Ethan." Ethan ignored her. "If she wants a table, we should seat her. That's our job." Ron rolled his eyes. "And our job is to keep this place respectable. We don't need people like her ruining the atmosphere." Maya had heard enough. She could push the issue, demand a table, but she wanted to see how far they'd take this. "I'd like to speak to the manager," she said. Claire smirked. "Oh, you definitely will." Moments later, a tall, well-dressed man appeared, his dark suit crisp, his watch gleaming. Victor, the restaurant manager. His expression was one of practiced politeness, but there was an underlying smugness beneath it. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked. "Your staff refuses to seat me," Maya said. Victor glanced at her clothing, and his lips twitched in amusement. "I see. And, miss, we have a strict policy. We maintain a certain standard here at Royale. If you cannot meet that standard, I'm afraid we cannot serve you." Maya's jaw tightened. "So, you're turning me away because of my appearance?" Victor chuckled. "I wouldn't put it like that. But let's be honest. You don't belong here." The words rang in Maya's ears, not because they hurt, but because of the sheer audacity. She had seen enough. Straightening, she looked Victor in the eye. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Victor smirked. "I'm very sure." Maya nodded. "All right then." She reached into her pocket, pulling out a sleek black envelope. "Before I go, why don't you take a look at this?" Victor frowned, grabbing the envelope. He opened it, eyes scanning the official document inside. And then his smirk vanished. His face drained of color. His hands trembled. His eyes darted from the paper to Maya, back to the paper. This isn't possible," he whispered. The other staff exchanged confused glances. "What is it?" Claire asked. Victor swallowed hard. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "She's the owner." Silence fell over the restaurant. Claire's eyes widened. Ron took a step back. The entire staff stared at Maya in shock. Maya took a slow, deliberate step forward. "Now, let's talk about how you treat your customers." Part 2. The reckoning begins. A stunned silence gripped the restaurant. The once smug Victor now stood frozen, his complexion pale, his fingers trembling over the document in his hands. Maya crossed her arms, letting the moment sink in. The staff who had mocked to belittle her only minutes ago now stared in horror, their arrogance evaporating into cold dread. Claire, the hostess, forced an awkward laugh. "T, this has to be a mistake, right?" She looked at Victor desperately, but he only remained silent, his hands clenching the paper as if willing it to change. Ron shifted uncomfortably. "She's lying, right? This is some kind of joke." Maya's expression remained neutral, but her voice carried authority. "Would you like me to call my lawyers to clarify?" Victor looked as if he might pass out. "And no, that won't be necessary." Maya stepped forward, her gaze sweeping over the gathered staff. "I came here tonight for one reason. To see if Royale was still the restaurant my father built. To see if my employees treated every guest with the respect and dignity they deserve." She let her words linger, watching their shame deepen. "And I was disgusted by what I saw." Claire's lip quivered. "Ms. Carter, we didn't know." Maya turned sharply toward her. "And if I wasn't the owner? If I were just an ordinary woman who came here for a meal? You have treated me like trash, humiliated me in front of a full restaurant, and thrown me out." Claire's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, but no words came out. Maya's gaze moved to Victor. "And you, the manager of my establishment, the man responsible for upholding its standards, you condone this behavior, encouraged it even." Victor wiped the sweat from his brow. "You're fired." A gasp rippled through the staff. Victor's eyes bulged. "Ms. Carter, please." "I don't need a manager who decides who deserves respect based on their clothing," Maya said, her tone final. Victor swallowed hard, his mind racing for an escape. "You can't just fire me on the spot like this." Maya smirked. "Actually, I can." She pointed at the document still clutched in his shaking hands. "It's all there in black and white. You work for me." Victor was seething, but he knew he was cornered. Maya turned toward the rest of the staff. "And as for the rest of you, anyone who participated in the humiliation of a guest tonight, you're fired as well." Ron and Claire both paled. "Wait, no." Claire cried. "Please, Miss Carter, I need this job." Maya's face remained cold. "You needed this job before you decided to judge people based on their appearance. Now you can find another one." The restaurant's other employees, who had only watched in silence up to this point, held their breath, afraid they'd be next. Amidst the chaos, one voice broke through. "W, what about me?" It was Ethan, the young waiter who had stood up for her earlier. He looked anxious, unsure whether he'd be punished for simply being part of the staff. Maya turned to him, and for the first time that night, her expression softened. "You," she said, "are the only one here who upheld the values of this restaurant." Ethan blinked, surprised. I just did what was right." Maya smiled slightly. "And that's exactly why I want you to be the new manager." A collective murmur swept through the restaurant. Ethan's eyes widened. "And manager? Me?" Maya nodded. "You have integrity, Ethan. And integrity is something this place desperately needs." Ethan hesitated, still in shock. "But I've never been a manager before. I don't know if I—" "You'll learn," Maya assured him. "And I'll be here to guide you. My father built Royale on the foundation of respect, quality, and fairness. I want to bring that back, and I need someone like you to help me do it." Ethan swallowed hard, his hand shaking slightly, but then he straightened his back. "I won't let you down, Miss Carter." Maya smiled. "I know you won't." But just as she thought the chaos was over, a slow clap echoed from across the restaurant. The sound was mocking, deliberate. Maya turned sharply and saw a man in a tailored suit leaning casually against the bar, a smirk playing on his lips. Her stomach twisted. She knew that smirk anywhere. Damian Reeves, the owner of Ember and Gold, the rival restaurant that had been trying to put La Royale out of business for years. He pushed off the bar and sauntered toward her, his dark eyes gleaming with amusement. That was quite the performance, Maya. She clenched her jaw. What are you doing here, Damian? His smirk widened. Oh, you know me. Always keeping an eye on the competition. He glanced at the fired staff members, chuckling. And from the looks of things, La Royale just suffered quite a loss. Maya narrowed her eyes. We're getting rid of dead weight. Damian laughed. Oh, I'm sure. But tell me, what happens when word gets out that La Royale is firing half its staff overnight? That your own employees humiliated a guest? Customers don't like drama, Maya. They want a restaurant that's stable. Maya's fists clenched. She hated that he had a point. The last thing she needed was bad press. Damian leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. If you want, I could take some of that burden off your hands. A few of your best chefs, perhaps? Some of your remaining staff? They might prefer to work for someone who doesn't throw them out on a whim. Maya stared him down, her pulse quickening. She knew what he was doing. He wanted to weaken La Royale, to scoop up the best employees for his own restaurant, while hers was vulnerable. But she wouldn't let that happen. She forced a smile. You can try, Damian, but La Royale will always be stronger than anything you can buy. Damian chuckled, giving her an infuriating wink. We'll see about that. And with that, he turned and walked out, leaving Maya with a new problem on her hands. She had rooted out the corruption within her own restaurant, but now she had an outside enemy to deal with, and she had a feeling Damian wasn't done yet.